Our
old.
aesthetic that's starting to develop is Juliana carries the glam, so Kay can just wear her sweats and her sweater.
It's not a bad aesthetic to have.
Hey, you know.
And also, our voices sound very different on the podcast.
Yeah.
Have you listened to the podcast yet?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's different. It's interesting once you divorce the visual medium from it.
It is most of the time with two female voices, they totally get lost, and
They
you
blend.
have to
Yeah.
you do a second of like. I think our sound
really
characteristic.
You have a higher timbre than I do. Once I stopped trying to hide that I had a low voice, because I had a complex about it when I was a kid.
Did you
I
really?
was like, I sound like a boy. Oh no.
I lower my voice.
I tried to lighten it. I tried to be up here a little bit more, but it also took my volume away. So people
And your
would ask-
power.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So once I got old enough and became self-possessed, I was like, F that noise.
One of the biggest lessons I got from my voice teacher of, most of my operatic life, he taught me how to lower my speaking voice, because I came to him, this really nice girl from Texas who really wants to make everybody happy.
Oh my God, Elle Woods, how are you doing?
Oh my God,
She wasn't
totally.
Southern, but...
Well,
oh my God.
This is a really great room.
Oh my God.
I love your bedroom.
This is the fun of getting back to Nutley and their new show that's in now, which is 5 women wearing the same dress. Our mutual friend Alex, who we adore to death, his shows have an aesthetic about them and a professionalism that is just wonderful. So,
Yeah.
And you're going to see a lot of this room because... Well, because A, we're in love with it, because now we're in our bedroom from the early 90s, or at least we're in Juliana's bedroom. I didn't have Kurt Cobain on my wall. My parents would have flipped. Nor did I have ashtrays, but that's another story. No, it's fantastic. This show's a month out from opening, and he's already got his cast a set. Like, we were riffing about this before we started recording, and not to turn this into the Alex Love Hour,
But why not? We love you, Alex Alessi.
as actors, we so appreciate that. We love his just everything is so professional and fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of actors, look, I did a transition.
Brilliant.
But I shouldn't have done this with my hands
know.
because now I've ruined it. Unless you're listening and you'll never know what I did.
You're overselling it, Kay.
I don't know. I have no chill. I'm like Lin-Manuel Miranda. When I get on something that I love, and we're going to get into a lot of that today, I have no chill. Anyway, no. So we are actually... How would you put this topic together? Because we're talking about actors,
Yeah.
but we're talking about kind of a specific...
Yeah, we're talking about actors who have made the transition from theater to film or television and then back again. Or
Just
actors
lived in
who
both
can go-
mediums.
who can live in both worlds.
Which is, you'd think, well, they're an actor. From the way outsider perspective, they're an actor. They should be able to do... They're very different creatures. And it does take a specific type to be able to move between the two well. And actually... At least in the theme that I've gone with, I've picked people who then became so well known for what they did on TV and screen that kind of their theater stuff sort of slipped into the background a little bit. Those of us who love the theater, of course, go, well, duh. But those who only watch the TV, this is my TV.
You have a really little TV.
I have it's so sad. Little violin as well that's playing a sad, sad soliloquy for my little orphan Annie-ness. For people who only know them from the TV. The theater thing is a surprise, so that should be fun to dig into. I will go first, and I'm a big nerd and so excited about this one.
I love the personal connection you have with Jerry Orbach.
I have a very personal connection with
Did you
Jerry
bring
Orbach.
it?
Let me read a passage. This is a fine work of literature called All About Me by Catherine Ann. I forgot I had an E on the end of my middle name when I was 7, but that's okay. This is fine vintage. It was written and illustrated by Wows, and also I love the contact paper cover. This is absolutely first edition.
Yeah.
Here we go. Kay Cook, because they asked us many fine prompts about our life, like what do we love? What's our favorite color? What do we want to be when we grow up, when we're 7? And of course we have a great idea. I wanted to animate for Disney. But if I could have one wish, I would wish that Jerry Orbach, my hero, that his car would break down in front of our house. That he would have to spend the night at our house because it was so late the auto place was closed and I would entertain him. Anyone who has Silence of the Lambs in their heads right now. Anyway, that is my way of introducing my first actor I'm talking about, screen stage star Jerry Orbach, or Jerome Bernard Orbach, who was born October 20th, also a fellow October baby. That's when my birthday is, not the 20th, but it's a good month. Born October 20th, 1935. And he was born in the Bronx. He's a New Yorker through and through. Those of you who know him from his screen work find this completely consistent with his later career. His dad, Leon, was a Jewish immigrant from Hamburg, Germany. And he held your kind of stereotypical dual job of vaudeville performer / restaurateur. When you work in the theater, you get to know how to work your way around food service. It just happens. But his family did move around a lot. Like, he was born in New York, but the family hopped from New York to Pennsylvania to Massachusetts to Illinois. Illinois is where Jerry did most of his schoolwork. In fact, he attended Northwestern University before transferring to the Actors Studio in New York City, where he studied with no less than Lee Strasberg. Talk about pedigree. And this is where all of you TV people, he started in theater, obviously with a background like the Actors Studio. But if you only know him from Law & Order, then you're missing a lot. You're missing the fact that he originated 3 classic musical theater roles. He was the original El Gallo in The Fantastics. He was Billy Flynn in the original Chicago, and Julian Marsh in 42nd Street. So, not for nothing, that's a pretty good pedigree to have as a musical theater actor. 3-time Tony nominee. He won the Tony, finally, in '69 as Chuck Baxter in Promises, Promises. But prior to that, he'd been nominated for Guys and Dolls in '65, and then he had one more nomination for Chicago in '76. And after the '70s, he completely hopped over to the screen, and not that he didn't lose his touch with theater, but that's where you start to have things like Baby's father in Dirty Dancing. He's in Dirty Dancing. And if you remember him from this era in the 80s, he also had a recurring role, and there's a nice connection here I love, as P.I. Harry McGraw on Murder, She Wrote, with his future Beauty and the Beast co-star Angela Lansbury. I love all these connections. Or perhaps you might know him, or maybe you just know him, me, because he had an Emmy-nominated turn as Dorothy Spornak's marriage-breaking boyfriend on season 7 episode Cheaters, The Golden Girls. Look it up. And there's actually a further layer on that I'm holding on to for now, because I will get back to Dorothy Spornak in a bit. But the thing is, if you know his screen work, you know that his type tended to be private investigator, career cop. But when he was just a touch younger, he wound up playing a lot of gangsters and bad guys. So if you will, he's sort of both sides of the badge.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, but he had that gravitas. Look, I'm sounding like you.
I thought it was me talking for a second.
I told you that Orbach has sort of been my thing. And just to review, I was 7 when I started developing.
What did you first see him in?
I first heard him in Beauty and the Beast. In Disney, 1991. I was that kid who didn't just love the animated characters. I wanted to know about the people who provided the voices.
So what role did he play? Did he voice?
He was Lumiere, the candelabra in Beauty and the Beast. My heart.
Is that your first crush?
It's a weird crush for me, because, you mostly think of, she had something romantic about him. I very much had crushes on actors who could be like mentors to me. I wanted, say what you will about Kay's family structure. I had these celebrity relatives I wanted. And Jerry Orbach was either going to be my grandpa or my really cool older uncle who could tell me all about life. Mm-hmm. And I also had never been to New York City at that point. Mm-hmm. So he would probably take me around. Actually, funny little pocket story, because he did Beauty and the Beast right before he started on Law & Order. Law & Order was 92. Beauty and the Beast was recorded in 90. Mm-hmm. So really, he did Beauty and the Beast when he was in that transitioning to hardcore television where everybody will now only know you as Lenny Briscoe for the rest of your life. Right. But he had been in that place. He was just starting Law & Order as Beauty and the Beast was ramping up. Mm-hmm. And I remember being 7 years old and wanting to watch Law & Order and being told no way. Which, in fairness,
that's fair.
Yeah. I've gone back. What it did is, as I got older, it gave me something to enjoy once I was mature enough to handle Lumiere busting bad guys in the streets of New York. Because I did actually interchange Lumiere and Jerry Orbach. This is so sad. Wow. Oh, man. I mean, I could go on and on about him. And I don't know. I mean, like, when he died in 2004, I remember actually, like, having this feeling of having lost a member of my family. I was that kid. I don't know, man. I loved that whole cast of that film, and I followed them. Cast of that film. I didn't even see their faces. It was an animated movie, but I latched on, like, how many kids are paying attention to the credit sequence? This many. But I was sitting there, I wanted to know. And I also, somewhere in the pages of this fine tome, talk about how I wanted Jerry Orbach to be my buddy so he could teach me Lumiere's voice. Which, here's a fun sidebar. When asked to describe his inspiration for the voice of Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast, he said he thought of it as a mix of Maurice Chevalier and Pepe Le Pew. Which is spot on. I mean, absolutely spot on. But I've always been such a tremendous fan of his. So we want some Orbach facts.
What?
Some Orbach facts. That almost came out dirty. Fast facts, strange but true, dear.
Paging Dr. Freud?
Jerry Orbach's son, Tony, is a professional crossword puzzle maker.
Oh my God.
Of all the things. And I was like, that's a thing? I'd love for that to be, like, on my passport. It's like, what's your job, sir?
Well, you know, like, the drop-down menus where you have to choose your occupation?
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Where's that one? But his work is frequently featured in the New York Times.
Cool.
He's not the Sunday puzzle editor. That's Will Shortz.
That's right.
But, you know, he's a professional puzzler.
Wow.
That's fantastic. The day after Jerry Orbach's death, this is, again, it's sad, but they dimmed the lights on Broadway for him. Of course they did. So if there was any doubt about the theater connection, it's right there, kids. I talked about Lumiere. Jerry was really that New Yorker. He had a high-rise apartment on 53rd and 8th. And he was that guy he had his favorite Italian restaurants. He was a city guy, and he would, like, leave his signed headshot at, like, the dry cleaner where he always went. Like, you know, a lot of times when you think of those signature roles, there's something in that actor, I think, that marries with that. So playing a 25-year career cop like Lenny Briscoe, who has lived in New York City, I mean, for Jerry, that had to be, like, second skin. I mean, God, it's just kind of like he'd be all the things you'd want him to be as far as New York. And I think because his career started on stage in New York, it's like he's just that New York guy.
Well, even if he had just the stage career,
oh, totally,
he would be a tremendously successful Broadway actor.
They've named the intersection right there at 53rd and 8th where his hire was Jerry Orbach Way.
Yeah.
So that's the reason that's there, kids, is because he used to live up there, and now he does live up there. I want him to be my friend and come live with me. Cut. Okay, I cut that quick.
That was really good.
And obsessive.
So Shelley WInters.
Oh, God.
She was born Shirley Schrift.
Okay.
In St. Louis, Missouri in 1920. She was the daughter of Rose, who was a singer with the St. Louis Municipal Opera Theater, or the Muny, it's known today. And Jonas Schrift, he is a designer of men's clothing. Her parents were Jewish. Her father immigrated from Austria, and her mother was born in St. Louis to Austrian immigrants. So they had, in fact, her parents were third cousins.
Oh, wow. Hey, it's not weird. It's fun.
No, so she had,
yeah,
a lot in common with.
They're a lot in common. Epically.
So her family moves to Brooklyn when she's 9 years old, and she grows up also in Queens as well. And as a young woman, she's working as a model. And so at age 16, Shelley, now with a stage name.
It works.
Because she was born Shirley.
Yeah.
Now Shelley.
It's cute.
Yeah, at 16, she relocates to LA. And in her teens, she auditioned for the role of Scarlett O'Hara.
Oh, wow.
In David O. Selznick's production of Gone with the Wind.
Went with the Wind. That's Carol Burnett.
That's your fill in the blank.
Slightly different production.
Fun side fact.
Yes.
My grandmother was tapped by a scout to stand in for Olivia de Havilland because she was the exact same size. So she went in, did screen tests and everything, and then her father found out.
Oh, no.
And said, you will be disowned if you if you go to Hollywood.
You need to drop that bit of knowledge, though, to my husband, Packy. Olivia de Havilland is one of his, like, Hollywood idol women. He adores. Yeah, of all things. He loves her.
That's so funny.
Yep.
Very cool. So she didn't get the part.
No, womp womp.
But the director was the first person, George Cukor, to ever treat her as if she really were an actress. You know that feeling.
That's sweet. Yeah. Oh, no. Professionalism.
So she's still in high school. She's entering beauty contests. She's modeling. She's acting in plays. And she gets a part in the National Company of Pins and Needles. But when the director finds out that she had borrowed a friend's union card...
Oh, geez.
To get it, so she's cast. But she had
borrowed oh, God.
She had borrowed a friend's union card to get to the audition. So she was... let go.
Yeah. I mean, you could be Carol Burnett and share an audition dress, but don't share the card.
It's just funny that struggle's been going on.
Oh, no, totally. Any of the biographies of the women in that time and trying to get seen and trying to get by on meager income at best. They all had a lot of tricks.
Yeah.
That one's not a great choice.
No. I mean, but she's still a teenager.
I get it.
So the director advises her to go study acting. Also, she had a very thick New York accent.
Boy, that came out as very passive. Go study acting, dear.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a sincere way. Yeah.
It was kind of real talk moment.
Got it.
For her. So she goes to, he actually takes her to a dramatic workshop at New York City's New School for Social Research. And she says, it would change my life, my art, my politics, and I think my soul. That's so sweet. Paul Newman was born in Shaker Heights, Ohio.
Transition. Yeah. Juliana's doing both of hers together.
Yeah.
I'm bookending.
He was born as the second son of Teresa and Arthur Sigmund Newman, who ran a sporting goods store.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And Paul's father was Jewish as well, the son of immigrants from Hungary and Poland. And his mother, Teresa, was a practitioner of Christian Science. His mother worked in his father's store while raising Paul and his older brother, Arthur, who later became a producer and production manager.
Yes, I think I'd heard that, yeah.
Yeah. So Newman actually had a very early interest in theater.
Yeah.
As opposed to Shelley having that early interest in film.
Yeah.
His first role was at the age of 7. He played the court jester in a school production of Robin Hood. At age 10, Newman performed at the Cleveland Playhouse in a production of St. George and the Dragon and was a notable actor and alumnus of the Curtain Pullers Children's Theater Program. So that's the 19s and 20s and 1930s for these guys. Let's go to the 1940s.
Sounds good.
For a couple of summers, Shelley WInters was an entertainer at one of the hotels in the Borscht Belt in the Catskills.
Yep.
That's your stomping ground.
Oh,
right?
God. Well, and by the time I was old enough, it was gone. But the old resort this is bleeding into our love of, like, haunted places and abandoned buildings. Right. A lot of those old resorts are still there and just peeling paint, and they're steeped in such entertainment history.
That's right.
So many people came through there.
That's it.
It was the summer thing to do, man.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. So she did a little vaudeville there. She did an off-Broadway play, and she did a national company tour of the Broadway musical Meet the People. So the early 40s for her were about this off-Broadway, off Catskills vaudeville theater scene.
Like off Catskills.
Starting Catskills vaudeville.
Off Catskills.
When she was appearing, though, as Fifi in the hit Broadway show Rosalinda, studio head Cohn spotted her blonde good looks and her comedic possibilities, and he asked her to do a screen test. Soon as she was in Hollywood, she got under contract. And her first lines were spoken to Rosalind Russell in What a Woman in 1943. "You can't go in there now, miss."
The immortal line.
That's it.
Yeah.
So here's where I see a big shift in the way Shelley WInters approaches her art. In 1946, 47, and 48, she studied with Charles Laughton 7 days a week for 3 years and never missed a night. So can you imagine what 3 years studying mostly Shakespeare every day, 7 days a week for 3 years, what that might do to your acting?
Oh, totally. I mean, that's...
So here she is, bit part, bit part, bit part, bit part, bit part. She's a little bit Jean Harlow. She's being groomed to be a glamorous, blonde, ditzy starlet. She's a little bit Mae West, which she never, I think, pulled out of the Mae West. And she was lumped in with the sexy blonde starlets. But from this time she starts studying real hard, she really wants to give up the glamour and get a really good role. So after years on studio contract playing these little tiny parts, she was feeling discouraged when in 1947 George Cukor cast her as the doomed waitress in the film he was directing, A Double Life. And it proved to be her breakthrough role. It was an actual role, is it named role. And this role helped Winters land a new contract with Universal Pictures. She says, "To this day, I feel that getting A Double Life was a miracle. So much of a successful career depends on standing in the right corner at the exact right moment." She wrote. The new studio is also said to have added that S because her mother, Rose, her maiden name is Rose Winter. Okay. And so when Shirley first took the stage name, she became Shelley Winter.
Yep.
Right, so now with this new contract, she gets an S.
Yay.
How fun. Okay.
Honey, you're more marketable as a plural.
Right?
More Winters.
Yes. Yeah, the last names.
Winters is coming. I'm sorry. Did I do a thing?
You didn't.
I'm sorry.
Special.
I apologize for being special.
So Newman, in 1943, when so this is when Shelley is first getting these little tiny parts. Newman in 1943 was graduating from high school in Shaker Heights. He briefly attended Ohio University, and he was initiated into the Pi Kappa Fraternity. He served in the U.S. Army, Navy in World War II. He initially actually, I almost said audition, enrolled in the Navy pilot training program at Yale University, but he was not accepted because his colorblindness was discovered. So
that was one thing that would roll you out.
Absolutely, for Navy pilot. So after the war, he completes his Bachelor's of Arts in Drama and Economics at Kenyon College.
Hey, have a day gig, man. Yeah, have something that'll help you be marketable, like welding.
Well, although as soon as he graduated, he went right into summer stock companies, most notably the Belfry Players in Wisconsin and the Woodstock Players in Illinois. He toured with them for 3 months, where he really started developing his craft. And later he attends the Yale School of Drama for 1 year before he moves to New York City to study with Lee Strasberg.
Hey, look!
At the Actors Studio. All right, now it's the 1950s. So Winters has broken into Hollywood films, but as the blonde bombshell type, she's tired of the role's limitations. And even with this credit, she was not allowed by studio heads to test for Alice Tripp in A Place in the Sun because they called her too blonde and too pretty.
Oh.
Must be nice.
I hate that.
So, what she did is she finagled a meeting at the Hollywood Athletic Club. She dyed her hair brown. She did not put on makeup. She put on a loose gray coat, brown shoes, and white bobby socks, and sat in the club's lobby. When studio heads arrived, they didn't even recognize her, and she just sat there. But when they started leaving, they found her. She got to be tested, and she got the role.
Nice.
She learned, she says, a valuable lesson in acting after she had done a particularly important scene, which she wept buckets. And she thought she was great. It was suggested to her that she hold back.
I think she overdid it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he was right. When I didn't cry, the scene had much more impact on the audience.
We've had this actor conversation before. It's the struggle to not cry that is more compelling than just messily losing your stuff all over the stage. Unless the scene specifically calls for it. But it's, that's...
More often than not, it's not.
Totally.
So even though she's now in demand as a character actress,
which is how I know her, I've been sitting on this to wait to say what I know her from, but go.
Yeah. She's still studying in theater. She's still studying at the Actors Studio, and she ends up teaching there as well. She studied in the Hollywood Studio Club and in the Actors Studio LA when she was there, and in the Actors Studio in New York. Her performance in 1951 with A Place in the Sun was a huge departure. She got a nomination for her first Oscar for Best Actress. She also returns to the stage in the mid-50s. She has a Broadway run in A Hatful of Rain in 55, 56, where she plays opposite her future husband, Anthony Francoisa. We should cut that.
No, I'm keeping it because that's fantastic.
She's playing opposite her future husband.
I have some fantastic French things I need to say later that I'm going to equally butcher, so let's just go with it.
Newman also arrived in New York 1951 with his first wife, Jackie Witt, taking up residence in Staten Island. And he's there because he's enjoying his Broadway debut in the original production of William Ingay's Picnic. He originally auditioned for the lead role of Hal, and instead they were like, you're just not a leading man. So they cast him as his best friend. And then he understudied Hal, and then actually ends up getting the role.
Excellent.
Yes. And so Paul Newman is in New York to do theater. Period. He's not bouncing back and forth right now like Shelley WInters is doing. He appeared in the original Broadway production of The Desperate Hours and the original production of Sweet Bird of Youth with Geraldine Page. And 3 years later, he also stars with Page in the film version of Sweet Bird of Youth. So during this time, he also starts acting in television. His first credited role was in a 1952 episode of Tales of Tomorrow entitled Ice from Space. In the mid-1950s. He appeared twice in CBS's Appointment with Adventure, anthology series.
Oh God, that era. That
what a
era.
Great title. That would be a great name for another spin-off podcast.
Unfortunately, all I can think of right now, because I'm a Muppets nerd, is Pigs in Space. Continue.
Ice in Space and Appointment with Adventure. Right. Oscar Levitt. Do you know who that is? He's the pianist in American in Paris.
Okay. Yeah. Not by name, but by reference. Yeah.
Hollywood guy. He wrote that Newman initially was hesitant actually to leave New York for LA because he said it's too close to the cake. Also, no place to study. Study was huge to Paul Newman.
Well, and I think that, I feel anyway, based on that his take would be sort of that traditional actor thing of, to really be in the craft, you do live theater.
Yeah.
Like, film and TV is great for making money. But, you do theater to be an actor with a capital A, which I don't disagree with entirely. Not to say there isn't some magnificent work done on film and television, absolutely. But there is something about the live energy of the theater and the keeping it fresh every night, and just that cannot be matched by we need to do this from 5 different angles pace in the can, and then it'll show up many, many months later of a Hollywood production.
Yeah. Well, my experience with on-film work has been that being on camera, to me, feels much more like modeling plus improv.
Yeah.
Than the workshop of theater. And also when you're doing film, it's like you need to be able to have already processed your entire character, because you're not going to film this thing in order. You're going to, you might be being killed by the guy that's in the penultimate scene. You're filming that on Tuesday, and then by Friday you're filming you just met him. It's a different skill set, and I don't want to belittle it because it takes totally different muscles. And you have to practice it as well.
Yeah, but there's just that traditional feeling of, from the standpoint of, it's live, it's here, it's now. Your character is chronological. Yeah. So many people, like Chris Evans is doing it right now with Lobby Hero in New York.
Oh, I didn't realize.
And he's like, this is my stage debut, but I've always been a big nerd. And I'm like, Captain America loves musical theater. Yay. Aww. Sorry, Chris Evans fans who know him for more, but I first became aware of him as Cap. Anyway. But yeah, going to New York seeing New York is more legit theater. So I totally feel what Newman was saying about, how did he put it?
About it?
The cake?
Too close to the cake.
Okay.
I don't know if he's referring to cheesecake or beefcake. I don't know. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, no, I get it. Or I was just associating that with like the largesse of, you go to LA to make money.
I mean, economically,
it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I blame no one.
He studied drama and economics, so maybe that.
He knew. He was like, well, I want to be an artist, but I also want to have the money.
Yeah.
So.
It's too. 19 1960s, 1970s. Shelley WInters wins an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for The Diary of Anne Frank in 1960, and another in the same category for A Patch of Blue in 1966. She donates her Oscar from The Diary of Anne Frank to the Anne Frank House in Amsterdam. And notable roles that she also did was the Charlotte Hayes in Lolita. I watched that scene again last night.
Yes.
And you can really see her Stanislavski and her Strasberg coming out. It's amazing. She stars opposite Michael Caine and Alfie in Harper, Poseidon Adventure, Next Stop Greenwich Village. She goes back to the stage in the 1960s and 70s, also most notably in Tennessee Williams' Night of the Iguana. She appears in cult films, Wild in the Streets, and 1971's Whoever Saw Auntie Roo. She stars in the 1970 Broadway musical Minnie's Boys as Minnie Marks, the mother of Groucho, Harpo, Chico, Zeppo, and Gummo Marks. She also is still teaching classes at the Actors Studio for several years. She's training the likes of Robert De Niro. In 1971, she has a series of one-act plays known as One Night Stands of a Noisy Passenger that's produced off-Broadway. Newman is still going hard into the 60s in the film world. The Young Philadelphians, Exodus, From the Terrace, The Hustler, HUD, Tom Curtin, Harper, Ombre, Cool Hand Luke, The Towering Inferno, Slapshot, Absence of Malice, The Verdict, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
I'm waiting for that. Butch Cassidy is probably the first time I was aware of him which is later in his career.
It is. He's been at it for a while.
For both of these people, I feel like my stronger basis is as they were older.
Yeah.
And I adore every second of him in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Followed by The Sting. So Butch Cassidy is 1969. The Sting is 1971. Hugely important. He marries Joanne Woodward. They have a famously wonderful relationship.
Yes.
He fought for his marriage. He's quoted as saying, "We both knew we had a lot to lose." If it didn't go right. He said one time they got in a fight and he left the house. He walked around the house and he knocked on the door and said, I don't have anywhere else to go, because he didn't want to become Hollywood fodder, right?
They don't make them like that anymore. Oh.
Newman directed 4 feature films starring his wife, Joanne Woodward. They were Rachel, based on Margaret Lawrence's A Jest of God, and the screen version of Pulitzer Prize-winning play The Effect of Gamma Rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds in 1972, which, by the way, he's directing his wife and his daughter in that movie. Isn't that cool?
That's awesome.
It's a family show. No, it's not. Okay. Television screen version of the Pulitzer Prize-winning play The Shadow Box in 1980. The screen version of Tennessee Williams' The Glass Menagerie. Do you see a pattern?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the theater that he's
Someone's
directing...
got a spot. Yeah, right in his heart. Never left it.
That's it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah, so 25 years after The Hustler, Newman reprised his role as a fast Eddie Felson in the Martin Scorsese-directed film The Color of Money in 1986.
Those are the things I love. I love it when they come back to the role substantially.
That's right. Yeah,
I love those.
Yeah. And he wins the Academy Award for Best Actor for that one.
Yes.
Yeah. So now let's move quickly to the 90s. Now it's the 90s. They have these fabulous careers. They're coming in and out of theater, in and out of movies.
Before we hit the 90s, there is a Shelley Winters movie. There are 2 things that Shelley Winters did that I know from the 80s. And that might be where they're so not. It's so funny. For you, probably Shelley Winters, like, what do you think of her?
I think of Lolita. That's like the first time I knew her. Yeah.
As I said, I think of these guys in terms of their later career. And
are you going to say Roseanne?
No. I actually am going to say something, 2 things. One, Pete's Dragon.
Yes, which is horrifying.
But that's where you can see her, like, immersed in a role.
Totally immersed.
And she's so good. When I did discover Shelley Winters beyond that, I was like, oh, damn.
But she's almost unrecognizable.
That's what I'm saying. But she's so good. I'm like, and the Gauguin family, she's the she's the mom of this backwoodsy. They're covered in mud, literally in the one scene, rolling the bad teeth. They have a great song.
Bad teeth gave me nightmares.
We got a bill of sale right here.
adorable.
But she's so good. Like, it's showing how what could be a very kind of toss aside part, you make memorable by what you put into it.
Well, it's like the Madame Thénardier type.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that might be the first time I was exposed to her, because Pete's Dragon was my jam as a kid. And then it was a brief bit in it, but that lovely 80s adaptation of Alice in Wonderland that we love, that was on TV.
Who did she play in
the
that
Dodo
one?
Bird. She's in the very first scene.
I don't remember that at
Oh,
all.
I'll have to show you. But I was like, that's a name that stuck out to me. And then what I'm saying, I guess, is that I became aware of her later work, where she's doing exclusively character-y stuff, and I love that because that's my type. Yeah. And then I discovered this whole other blonde bombshell world that was her when she was younger. So what's your favorite thing, when you think, what's like the top things that she did in your mind for you?
It would be Lolita, for sure. A Place in the Sun is brilliant work. I would say those two are for like what pops into my head.
It's so funny because it's such an opposite end of her career, man. I love that's how we think, though. I love that we cover both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. Okay, so later in her life, she's still teaching. She's doing a lot of off-Broadway stuff, which is crazy important and super valuable. She's rarely out of the news. She's got stormy marriages, romances with famous stars, politics, feminist activism. She is giving a lot of the provocative interviews. I mean, she's totally giving zero
shoots. Bang.
And she's got a second career as a writer now, which, by the way, on Amazon a couple days ago, I went ahead and bought her 2 of her autobiographies.
Nice.
Yeah.
Library card for me, but I'll dig that up.
She says of herself, though not a conventional beauty, my acting, wit, and chutzpah gave me a love life to rival Monroe's. She's like proud of it.
I
So
love her.
Fun fact that ties in with episode 5. She becomes friends with Janis Joplin.
Oh wow!
Shortly before she dies in 1970, Winters invited Joplin to sit in on a class session at the Actors Studio. Joplin never made it. She passed away before she made it.
Joplin could be a whole episode too, man.
Yeah. She makes an appearance in the 1998 Academy Awards telecast, which features a tribute to her and other Oscar winners past. And later, audiences know her primarily for her television work, which we talked about, in which she usually played a humorous parody of her public persona. She's got a recurring role in the 1990s as the character's grandmother on Roseanne.
Yep.
Her final film roles were supporting ones. She played a restaurant owner and mother of an overweight cook in Heavy with Liv Tyler and Debbie Harry, as an aristocrat in The Portrait of a Lady, starring Nicole Kidman and John Malkovich, and as an embittered nursing home administrator in 1999's Gideon. In 2003, Paul Newman appears in the Broadway revival of Our Town, and he receives his first Tony Award nomination.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Because I had done Our Town, and that was my senior year of high school, so I was starting to make that hop to, I should do this in college. And, like, Paul Newman is, like, for theater kids, and then I was like, oh my God. And hearing that this was his first, I was like,
yeah.
Ha ha.
2003.
Never give up.
Yeah.
Never give up.
Right. So he, Our Town, but PBS and Showtime aired a taping of the production, so Newman was nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a miniseries or TV movie.
Yeah.
He retired from acting officially in May of 2007, saying, "You start to lose your memory, you start to lose your confidence, you start to lose your invention. So I think that's pretty much a closed book for me." Newman was scheduled to make his professional stage directing debut with the Westport Country Playhouse in 2008 in John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. But he stepped down in May of 2008 because of health concerns and died later that year.
And that brings up Orbach for me again, because actually, and I didn't drop this in my info, but he eventually died of cancer. But he had been diagnosed only 1 year into the run of Law and Order. This was 93 that he got the initial diagnosis.
But kept it a secret?
Yeah, and he was getting the treatment on the side, going on, doing his thing.
Oh my.
He didn't die till 2004.
Amazing.
When it finally metastasized.
Right.
But it's like, and people he didn't want people to know he was sick.
Yeah.
He had been turning down work slowly.
Yeah.
And people just assumed, they're older. It's fine.
Right.
I love/wish they didn't have to feel this way about it sometimes. That it's like, I don't want to burden my fans. I don't want anybody to know I'm ill. You can take that two ways, because you also have celebrities like Michael J. Fox who turn into a platform and really do good.
Yes.
But you also have to respect the privacy angle on it too, and the fact that he had been battling it for a decade and didn't tell anybody. That was why his death was so sudden and surprising. Orbach's death was so sudden and surprising, because people didn't even know he was sick. But I appreciate Newman having that kind of similar thing of being like, and yeah, he worked right up to the end. They both did. If I'm going to go out, that's the way I want to be doing it, man. I still want to be working and doing my thing. Forget retirement. Don't retire. What the heck? I had this thing in my head as a kid of, like I said, my mentor idly, the people that I really connected to were kind of ones I wanted to be like my grandparents or my cool aunt and uncle. So now I'm going for my grandma. So first thing that needs to come out here is my actual grandmother, Jean Barber. I will put us, so she's going to sit here with us, because, and there's a connection. But now I also, because I'm going to be talking about Bea Arthur. The one and the only Bea Arthur. But I have a wardrobe change. Now I'm going to freak out Juliana because she doesn't know this is coming at all.
I'm so excited.
Oh, man. And that's why...
Oh, you actually go to the closet.
I'm so happy that this set is like this, because it gives me the opportunity to put on...
Wow.
My bikini. No, quite the opposite of a sexy bikini. This is, as I'm coming around... Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
My women's college sweater.
Okay.
Now, how does this connect to Bea Arthur?
I don't know.
All right, so I'm just going to start talking, and you will get it as you go along.
I love this Mr. Rogers.
It is very now, and actually I have sneakers that are close. So much for saying that you never see what's below the waist in this episode. Yes, so... Bea Arthur, born May 13th, 1922, born Bernice Frankel.
Ooh.
Slightly different. Brooklyn girl through and through. Yeah. Also, to make us 4 for 4, Jewish girl. Parents, Philip and Rebecca. 2 sisters, Gertrude and Marion. Now, she not only attended an all-female high school, she was a women's college alumni. So there. Bea Arthur... Ballsy broad, women's college. It is not that I hate men, ladies and gentlemen. It is that when you attend a women's college, you very quickly become aware of the phenomenon of how much more women come to life when there aren't men in the room. In an academic setting, that's huge. I took a lot of things outside of just theater. I took things that interested me, the history of the 60s. I took some psychology, sociology courses. They all actually fed into my art, but it meant I got to interact with women outside of my major. And so many of these girls, they wouldn't have opened their mouth when they were sitting in a classroom that's full of guys. And suddenly they not only have opinions, they have strong opinions. So this is my type of lady through and through. Yeah. So when I read Bea Arthur to a women's college, I went, of course she did. So much is made of this. It's not no longer little known fact, but it is strange but true, dear. Bea Arthur, after her education, she went into the Marine Corps for World War II, and she was a truck driver and a secretary, and she got as high as the rank of sergeant before discharge in 1945.
I didn't know that. That's
yes,
fascinating.
Indeed. And I love this, she did not want that to be known information during her lifetime. It is a fact that only came out after her death in 2009.
Do we know why?
I have a theory on it. Now, the more conspiracy-minded are like, oh, well, she must have been in some covert ops or whatever it was. And I'm like, it's less that. She did support the war effort, the women's reserve of the Marine Corps. But, and I've observed this in many from that generation, when they think about what they did on the home front, they go, it's nothing in comparison to what the boys who were in Europe and actually charging the beach and, in the foxholes. Yeah. So they supported the effort, but they feel like, especially those who were celebs who had this in their background, they don't want it to suddenly be about them because it should really be about the guys who aren't, oh, P.S., I'm on TV every week. When you think about The Greatest Generation, they're like, I was in that, but I was a supporting role. You don't want to be looking at me as a star here. So my theory on Bea Arthur is that she was like, yeah, it's something I did. And, you know, it's very much in line with the kind of woman she was, that of course she was a truck driving sergeant. I mean, why wouldn't she be? I love it. But the thing is, so she does her Army thing. She's discharged in 45.
Okay.
She comes back to New York because she's another New Yorker through and through. I have a theme here. I picked a guy who's a New Yorker and a lady who's a New Yorker. She'd always been interested in drama as a child. And so after the war, she enrolled at the dramatic workshop of the New School in New York City. There it is. She began working off-Broadway at the Cherry Lane Theater by 1946. Wow. So very shortly after her discharge, she starts working as an actor.
Wow.
Her first big role came as Lucy Brown in the English language adaptation of Kurt Weill's The Threepenny Opera. And this is a connection for me. My first role in college was in The Threepenny Opera as Lucy Brown. So I got to know Bea's singing style very early on. At that point, I pretty much had only known her from Golden Girls.
Recordings?
They do. Oh, absolutely.
Really?
There's recordings. There are lots of recordings. People who are theater folk with a capital T, they know that she's a musical theater person.
With an R-E ending.
With the R-E, that's theatre. They know, and they claim her proudly as a musical theater.
Yeah.
And I think it's also her voice that people go, really? She was a singer? It's like, oh yeah, she was a singer. She was a singer in the grand tradition of like Ethel Merman.
Yeah.
She was in the style of like an Ethel Merman, the back wall of the theater, the I'm going to make sure you understand me. It doesn't have to be the prettiest thing in the world. But, you know, you lean into that character and it works. So her first role is Lucy Brown in the Threepenny Opera. Her first big of any real recognizable. She, though, then went on to originate the role of Yenta the Matchmaker in the 1964 Broadway production starring Zero Mostel, Fiddler on the Roof. Man, she's on that original recording. And if you listen for it, you go, oh yeah, that's Bea Arthur. It's a much younger Bea Arthur, but I just love it. As Yenta.
That's so funny.
Avram, I have such news.
She's like, what, 26, 28?
Yeah, she's a baby. Yeah, she's born 22. This is 64. Yeah, so but of course she's Yenta. But 1966 brought her largest Broadway credit, originating the role of Vera Charles in Mame, opposite the fantastic and her lifelong friend Angela Lansbury.
Boy, would you all love to have gone to
Fly on the Wall? Oh my gosh, it is. YouTube this. Their version of Bosom Buddies is the gold standard for that song as far as I'm concerned, because they would bring it back like throughout their career, even as they're getting older, they would still sing Bosom Buddies together. I'm like, I love this thing here. I love this so much. But and in fact, Bea won the Tony for that role, and at that point, you know what? She won the Tony for that role, and she fondly recalls her time in the theater when she came back to Broadway and did a one-woman show in 2002, An Evening with Bea Arthur. Oh. There's something I'd love to go back to. I was in high school. Where were you, Kay? Why did you not get your... You were going to shows in New York at that point. Why not? What were you doing? So, where does the TV come into this? Where's this transition? Because right now I've set her up to be this musical theater.
Of the theater.
The theater, which she is.
Yes, for sure.
But what kind of happens, her big TV breakout role happens when a fellow named Norman Lear offers her a guest spot on his sitcom, a highly successful sitcom, in fact, called All in the Family. And she is cast as Maude Findlay, Edith Bunker's cousin, and a character designed to be as polar opposite Mr. Krabby Archie Bunker as you can get.
Okay.
Their energy, she is meant to be a foil. She is meant to be everything that Archie is not. Archie is conservative and cranky, and she is very forward-minded and women's activist. And like, Maude is meant to just make Archie crazy.
Right, yeah.
Now, CBS executives see this, what's meant to be maybe a quick, not quite a one-off, but a short-lived role, and go, write this down, who's that girl? She needs her own series. That's kind of the actor's dream, right?
That's how it goes.
Oh, man. So, yeah, the rest as they say, and then there's Maude, and that's all I can give you. Maude, her own spin-off series that comes from this one character on All in the Family. Maude becomes kind of the gold standard for a sitcom that's addressing socially taboo topics. We talked about the Vietnam War, the Nixon administration. Maude actually took a bid for a congressional seat, and this is the 70s. I love all of it. And of course things like gay rights, women's rights, abortion. They tackle spousal abuse, menopause, drug use, mental illness in a sitcom. And if this sounds like something she would do a few years later in the 80s in The Golden Girls, you're not wrong. If you are familiar with Maude, you see the progression of Bea Arthur into Dorothy Spornak, and you go, of course. Dorothy, in a lot of ways, could be Maude, give her another 20 years, and a lout of a bald husband named Stanley. Golden Girls I watched with Grandma. Actually, to the point, this is strange but true, dear, about your host, Kay. I used to watch Golden Girls and think they were my grandma's friends. Again, I was about 5, so give me...
Surely all little old ladies hang out together.
But my grandma looked a little like Bea Arthur to my mind. So I was like, of course, they're all friends. And why, Grandma, when are you... I think I literally said to her, when are your friends coming over? When I thought we were going to watch Golden Girls.
With your kidnapped, bound, and gagged Jerry Orbach in the basement.
So imagine
you're entertaining.
So imagine my surprise when Jerry Orbach shows up on screen. I'm like, how'd he get out of his box? Oh, man. But yeah, no, I have always personality type loved the, I'm trying to think of how to do this without having to bleep myself, and I don't think there's a way. It's that personality type. And Maude, Dorothy Spornak, these roles that Bea Arthur became so synonymous with. Yes, they took over, rather like with Jerry Orbach and Law & Order, kind of took over how pop culture remembers them. They're theater people, man. And I think... to the point of talking about the study of theater and how it makes you sharp and it makes you good, that grounding really sets up a screen actor for so much success. And I love that they're Broadway people. Yeah. And now I just want to go over to YouTube and watch Bosom Buddies and then listen to Jerry Orbach sing Try to Remember from the Fantastics and sob.
Let's go do that now.
Oh, this was so much... Well, we are in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so this was so much fun, and we could probably geek about... I'm sure we'll revisit this actors thing. This feels like a kind of episode I want to do over and over in the future.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
It's just interesting where we started on this, and we'll see where we go from here.
Yeah.
This is so much fun. Let's go.
This is great.
Let's go swim.
Go swimming?
I don't know. I have a pool over here. I'm on camera now. Don't you see the pool? It's a water bit.